So now we have to sing Srimad Bhakti. Namaste Narasya house here in the temple room, and they're serving Mahaprasad in the reception. The next arti is at 9.
Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda Radhe, Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula, Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, 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 Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajaka Acharya Stotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Graces Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Stotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जाय श्री वृंदावन धाम की जाय नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जाय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जाय गंगामाई की जाय यमुनामाई की जाय तुलसी देवी की जाय भक्ति देवी की जाय संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जाय. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Hridaya Nanda Das Goswaminiti Namane Namaste Guru Hansaya Paramananda Medase Prabhupada Pramodaya Dushta Siddhanta Nashini. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tonight we are reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, sixth verse. So I'll just first read word for word, and then line by line, and then the whole verse. Yatha akasha stita nityam yatha akasha stito nityam vayur sarvatra go mahan vayur sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani tatha sarvani bhutani matsthani iti upadharaya matsthanityupadharaya yathakasha stito nityam vayur sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani matsthanityupadharaya. Do you want to lead? Yeah. No, read the verse. Chant the verse. Chant. Yathakash. Yathakasha stito nityam. Vayu sarvatra go mahan. Tatha sarvani bhutani. Matsthanityupadharaya. Yatha. Just as Akasha stita, situated in the sky, Nityam, always, Vayu, the wind, Sarvatraga, blowing everywhere, Mahan, great, Tatha, similarly, Sarvani Bhutani, all created beings, Matsthani, situated in me, Iti, thus, Upadharaya, try to understand. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. For the ordinary person, it is almost inconceivable how the huge material creation is resting in him. But the Lord is giving an example which may help us to understand. The sky may be the biggest manifestation we can conceive. And in that sky, the wind or air is the biggest manifestation in the cosmic world. The movement of the air influences the movements of everything. But although the wind is great, it is still situated within the sky. The wind is not beyond the sky. Similarly, all the wonderful cosmic manifestations are existing by the supreme will of God, and all of them are subordinate to that supreme will. As we generally say, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, everything is moving under His will. By His will, everything is being created, everything is being maintained, and everything is being annihilated. Still, He is aloof from everything, as the sky is always aloof from the activities of the wind. In the Upanishads, it is stated, Yadbhisha vata pavate. It is out of the fear of the Supreme Lord that the wind is blowing. Taittiriya Upanishad 281. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is stated, Etasya va akarshaya prashasane gargi surya chandramasau vidritau tishtatau etasya va akarsharasya prashasane gargi dyav aprithviau vidritau tishtata. By the supreme order, under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the moon, the sun, and the other great planets are moving. In the Brahma Samhita also it is stated, Yat chakshuresha savita sakalagrahanam raja samasta suramurti rashesha teja yasyagya brahmati sambrita kala chakro govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. This is a description of the moment of the sun. It is said that the sun is considered to be one of the eyes of the Supreme Lord and that it has immense potency to diffuse heat and light. Still, it is moving in its prescribed orbit by the order and the supreme will of Govinda. So, from the Vedic literature, we can find evidence that this material manifestation, which appears to us to be very wonderful and great, is under the complete control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This will be further explained in the later verses of this chapter. Yathakasha stito nityam vayu sarvatra gomahan tatha sarvani bhutani matsthani tyupadharaya. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. So, we're continuing verse 6, where Krishna explains his inconceivable potencies. The previous two verses, Krishna explains about how he pervades this material universe. I'm just going to read the previous two verses connect. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshu astita. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yoga maishvaram bhuta brahma nacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavana. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. So in these two verses, Krishna says, in essence, he says that I pervade this universe, but at the same time, and all the beings are in me, but I am not in them. And that everything created rests in him, but he is not, he is completely aloof from this manifestation. He is not part of the cosmic manifestation, and he is the source of everything. So all of these statements, if someone uses their material logic, and if someone thinks in a material way, two contradictory things cannot exist at the same time. But in the case of understanding the absolute truth, contradictory things are actually how things are, because the absolute truth is unconceivable by the material logic. And therefore, the principle of approaching the understanding of the absolute truth, or the ultimate knowledge, can never be mental speculation, because mind is a limited thing. It is just one of the subtle elements of this material nature. So this is where the mind stands, and the little living entity possessing the mind, little tiny atomically sliced living entity, and in its tiny mind, which is even lower than the intelligence in terms of the hierarchy of the elements which are consisting of this in this material creation, and they're to actually imagine that one can understand by the use of the faculties of mind, the absolute truth, which is which is unlimited, is just like madness. If someone thinks like, they're so tiny and they're using their like faculty, which is limited, which has no has no it can basically with some sort of material logic we can understand some things to a certain extent, but this extent is very limited. So this is the first thing to understand, in approaching this spiritual knowledge. And the method of understanding the knowledge of the Absolute here is in the Bhagavad Gita is by hearing from Krishna the Supreme Absolute Truth, and he is here explaining directly. So you can imagine, it's like, so if you like to choose between the two, it's like you have the greatest personality, a source of all existence, explaining about himself, explaining how he is the source of all existence and how he relates to this material world, what is the relationship between the Supreme Lord and the material energy. And he explains that this is the Yoga Aishvara, this is the inconceivable mystic power. And so to actually be able to understand the tiny living entity, to be able to understand the Supreme Absolute Truth, first thing that he has to accept that we cannot by our own endeavors understand something that is beyond our limitations, and also to accept the inconceivable nature of the Supreme, basically that we cannot conceive by our mind. Yet, Krishna says that even that limited conditioned living entity in this state, it is possible to understand the Supreme only by the mercy of the Supreme, by hearing and by applying oneself in devotional service, in engaging one's essence and purifying one's senses. So, Sattvam Vishuddha Vasudeva Shabditam, that we can hear about the Supreme when we come to the platform of Sattva, Vishuddha Sattva, the pure goodness where Krishna eternally exists. So Krishna eternally exists in the Vishuddha Sattva, and he never comes in contact with the material modes of nature. They are, in the material modes of nature, are part of his external energy, Bahiranga Shakti, and Krishna never comes in contact. He is always situated in his internal energy. However, we, being part of his, also one of Krishna's energies, living entities, we are called Tatastha Shakti, the Krishna's energy that stands in between the spiritual and material energies of Krishna, and we come when we come in contact with material nature, with the modes of nature, by our decisions that we made in the past, we become conditioned by these modes. So it's not possible for us to then conceive or understand spiritual science or spiritual knowledge, because we're covered over, our senses are covered, our spiritual senses are covered. So Krishna is helping us here to understand. But this verse 9.6, which we're discussing tonight, Krishna is giving the analogy to help us to conceive the inconceivable. Just see how kind Krishna is. He's so patient as well, So he says, understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere, rest always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. So Krishna is explaining with the analogy of things that we can understand, we can perceive. Okay? So by pointing out to things that we can perceive, and a nature that even within this material world, we can see some things that are at the same time everywhere, but at the same time aloof. That we can accept that there is a nature that's beyond, that is simultaneously one and different. And this is the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. So do you know, maybe we can, because we have a small audience, we can have a little bit more interactive class. So can you think of another analogy that where Krishna's nature of inconceivable nature of simultaneous oneness and difference is explained very often? Analogy of something that we can see in this world. Bahir Nisiho, Hriday Nisiho. Yes, wherever we go, Krishna is there. Nrsimha Dev is here, there. There is no place that we can go and that Krishna will not be there. So, so this is this example of all-pervading nature. But what I thought too, there is another example of the sun, of the material object that we experience, that we see, who is situated in one place, yet his energy, he spread everywhere by his energy, by his heat and the light. So Srila Prabhupada very often makes this analogy of the sun to explain the features of the Absolute Truth that we can experience and we can understand how God can be situated in one place and then he can be everywhere with his energies, and how he can actually make everything happen by his energy. So just like the sun even, which is one material object, is giving light and giving heat, and by this one planet everything is possible, like life is possible. The vegetables are growing and we're getting nourishment and we're getting heat and light. We won't be able to actually function. We won't be able to see anything. So how that, just by understanding these things, we can try to remember Krishna and see Krishna everywhere. Srila Prabhupada quotes the verse, Yat Chakshuresha Savita Sakala Grahana. The Savita, the sun, he, out of all the grahas, or all the planets, he is like the king, and by his power, everything is maintained. But this sun, who is also an eye of the Lord, is functioning under the control of the Supreme Lord. So just by looking at this, if we think about this one item, we can just remember Krishna. Often people would argue and ask and say, can you show me God? But God is everywhere. And there is, how can you show someone God? God is already everywhere. He is, and there is nothing but God and his energies. So to be able to see God, one actually has to accept the process of devotional service. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayesha vilokayanti yam shyama sundaram achintya guna svarupam govindamadi purasram tamaham bhajami. So one can see the God by the eye smeared with the prema, with the ointment of love and devotion. And this is the way how Krishna is obtained. And he says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yasyasmi tattata tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. That only by bhakti one can understand me and enter into my nature. And Krishna is giving this knowledge. In this 9th chapter, in the beginning, we explained that Krishna says this is the topmost, the most secret knowledge. The secret out of all spiritual knowledge is this knowledge of bhakti, because by bhakti we can understand Krishna. We can understand his transcendental nature, how he's present everywhere, how he's has entered the creation, and at the same time he is aloof. He is never touched by this material nature. He is always transcendental. And in other place in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam. One who understands this divine, divyam, nature of my appearance and activities. Janma karma chame divyam, evam yo veti tattvata, tato mam tato gyatva, vishati tadanantaram. That one who can understand the transcendental nature, he does not take birth, but he comes back to me. So this knowledge of Krishna is very rare, and that even after many births, and that the person who is in knowledge, they come to devotional service. So Bahunam Janmanamate, after many, many births, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate, the person who is in knowledge, they surrender to Krishna. But now, and Krishna also explains in the Bhagavad Gita that persons who discuss this knowledge among devotees, who share this knowledge among devotees, they are the most dear. But devotees like Srila Prabhupada, who are the most compassionate, they bring this knowledge even to the non-devotees. So they're even more merciful, and that's why Lord Chaitanya, he came as a devotee, and that's why he's called the most merciful incarnation. So by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we actually have an access to this most secret knowledge, and such a rare gem to achieve even after many, many births of cultivating spiritual knowledge. We are actually now have an opportunity in one lifetime to engage in devotional service and understand the Supreme Absolute Truth. So by hearing about how Krishna is great, it will be very difficult, it will be very easy for us then to engage in devotional service, because the natural consequence of understanding the Supreme is that we surrender to the Lord, because we understand our relationship with Him, and we understand how great He is, and this is our greatest interest, our greatest fortune that we can have. So, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudevam Sarvamiti. When he understands that Vasudeva is everything. So this is this consciousness. When one understands Vasudeva is everything. So that just as, and that he is transcendental. So this is the divyam, the transcendental nature of the Lord. If we meditate on these truths, this is actually, and engage in devotional service to the Lord, that this is Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness is to understand that nothing happens without the will of the Lord. And in this purport, this is also, there's three different ways of understanding how Krishna is, how everything is situated in Krishna. One is that nothing happens without the will of the Lord. The second is that the creation and maintenance and destruction also happens under the direction of the Lord. And everything is within the form of time. Time is something that no one can avoid. So Kala Chakra, this is the proper, this mentions here. In the form of Kala, Krishna is controlling everything. So everyone is under the spell of Kala. Whoever is born, he must die. This is something, no one can avoid that. So if you can just remember one thing, and that all the different movements in nature, like the sky, the moon and the sun and the planets are moving. They're all, and even the oceans. It says the oceans are staying, not flooding the earth because of fear of the Supreme Lord. So by the order of the Supreme, everyone is following what they're supposed to do in the material nature. And so in this way, Krishna is under his will and under the spell of time, of the limit of what we have. Krishna is overseeing everything. So if we can understand these points, the only thing it's left to us to do is to surrender to Krishna and to try to transcend this material nature, just like he is directing us to, because this is the miserable temporary place where we don't belong. We belong in the spiritual world, and that's why the Lord himself and his confidential devotees come time and time again to give us the knowledge and give us direction how to remember the Lord, how to revive our dormant love for Krishna, our dormant eternal constitutional relationship with the Supreme, and break the cycle that we've been arrested for many lifetimes. We don't even remember. So this is all good news. Think of Krishna, never forget him, and it's very easy because Krishna is everywhere. And if we just read Prabhupada's books and understand how to think of Krishna, about how great he is, it will be very easy for us to engage in this confidential knowledge. Raja Vidyam Raja Guhyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyaksha Dharmyam Susukam Kartumavyayam. It is very easily and very happily performed. So we don't have to even independently endeavor to become renounced from the material world, because renunciation will be automatic, because we will be happy when we engage in devotional service, as opposed to impersonal spiritualists who renounce the world. They inevitably have to experience some suffering. However, devotional service is so potent that even if we are in a neophyte state, if we engage ourselves with our muddy mind and senses in the activities of devotional service, we will experience immediately the spiritual happiness, and therefore renunciation would not be and it would not be hard, because we will experience this happiness that we are all hankering for, and we will experience the higher taste. I just wanted also I came across, because we were talking about Kala Chakra and how Krishna is controlling everything within the span of time. And in the 11th canto, text, let's say, chapter 11th canto, Canto 3, Chapter 11, Canto 3, Chapter 11. You can note it down and you can read it later. It's relating to this verse that Srila Prabhupada is quoting from the Brahma Samhita about Kala Chakra. And it's explaining how the time and space are related, and the calculation of time within Srimad Bhagavatam is exactly done in this way, that it's calculated by the movements of the sun, by the atoms which are present in the sun rays. And he says here, one can estimate time by measuring the movement of the atomic combination of bodies. Time is the potency of the Almighty Personality of Godhead Hari, who controls all physical movement, although he is not visible in the physical world. So the same points that Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in this purport is explained from text 4 to 13. And it starts, atomic time is measured according to its covering a particular atomic space. That time which covers the unmanifest aggregate of atoms is called the great time. The atom is described as an invisible particle, but when 6 such atoms combine together, they're called trasarenu, and this is visible in the sunshine pouring through the holes of a window screen. So this is the first visible, is a 6 combination of atoms that we can see. Sometimes we can see the sun rays. And then it continues. The time duration needed for the integration of 3 tasarenus is called truti, and 100 trutis make 1 Veda. 3 Vedas make 1 lava. So it is calculated if you remember the quote of lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy, that even one moment of association with the sadhu can bring one all the perfection. So this is mention of this lava. It's a moment which is actually not even a second. And it says duration of time of 3 lavas is equal to 1 nimesha. The combination of 3 nimeshas make 1 kshana, 5 kshanas combined together make 1 kashta, and 15 kashtas make 1 lagu. 15 lagus make 1 nadika, which is also called a danda. 2 dandas make 1 muhurta, and 6 or 7 dandas make 1/4 of a day or night according to human calculation. The measuring pot for 1 nadika or danda can be prepared for 6 bala and pot of copper, in which a hole is bored with a gold probe weighing 4 massa and measuring 4 fingers long. When the pot is placed on water, the time before the water overflows in the pot is called 1 danda. It's very technical. You just see how Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us all of this information, but helping to understand how time is measured in this world. It is calculated that there are 4 praharas, which are also called yamas, in the day and 4 in the night of the human being. Similarly, 15 days and nights are the fortnight, and there are 2 fortnights, white and black, in a month. The aggregate of 2 fortnights is 1 month, and that period is 1 complete day and night for the Pitta planets. 2 of such months comprises 1 season, and 6 months comprise 1 complete movement of the sun from south to north. 2 solar moments make 1 day and night of the demigods, and that combination of day and night is 1 complete calendar year for the human being. The human being has a duration of life of 100 years. Influential stars, planets, luminaries, and atoms all over the universe are rotating in their respective orbits under the direction of the Supreme, represented by eternal Kala. And then the same verse of the Brahma Samhita has been mentioned. And continues on how the time is measured into the years of the demigods, and then days of Brahma, and then the whole life of Brahma, and at the end of 100 years of Brahma, this material universe comes to the end. So from the material calculation, some of these, from our point of view, some of these lifetimes seem enormous, but actually this is just 1 moment in the exhaling of the Mahavishnu when he lies on the Karuna Udaka ocean, Karuna Udaka, or the ocean of causality. And so the Supreme Lord expands in 3 Purushas, just as we can see in this picture. And lying on the causal ocean, he enters every universe as Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu and lies on the Garbha Udaka, the Garbha ocean in the bottom of the universe. And then he expands and enters every atom as Kshirodaka Shai Vishnu, and he's lying on the ocean of milk. And and he is present as a super soul in every heart as well. So we can think in this way, Krishna is expanded himself in his expansions, avatars, and he comes in different yugas as avatar, and also he sends his devotees. So basically, Krishna is constantly with us. We think, oh, like when the next incarnation is going to come, but Lord Chaitanya has just been, like, from the measurement of the demigods, it's just been here. So time is relative, and if we can remember how great Krishna is and how he is the smallest and how he's the greatest, and he's in every present everywhere, just like the wind is present, even though the sky is always encompassing it. So in the same way, all the manifestation, everything that's going on, it's all within Krishna's energy, within Krishna's jurisdiction, within his will. So these are some of the amazing things we can remember every day, and we can pray to be able to know the Lord and to become Krishna conscious. So that's it for tonight. If you have something to comment, maybe you can have some conversation about some of the points. Yeah, it is, well, in principle, to actually for everyone to be able to process the suffering of the world and the suffering that we go through, and not feel victimized by it, we have to come to the understanding that ultimately we have caused this suffering somehow or other in the past by making choices. And actually by accepting the responsibility, because this is the fact that we all are ultimately responsible for our karma, for the karma that we're getting, because we have somehow engaged in the material world in certain activities that produce a reaction. So we carry with us many different, like a karmic baggage. we carry karmic bags with us. Some of the karma is called prarabdha, which means the karma that has begun. And then you have bija, which is a seed karma, which has not fructified yet. So when we perform an action, we might not be able to see the reaction immediately. It might come in this life, or it might come in next lives. So we carry with us the seeds, and these seeds are in different stages of fructification. So the suffering is experienced with the karmic activities, the karmic reactions are fructified. So we experience happiness and distress because our karma is fructifying, is coming to realization. Unfortunately, this is how this world is working. We've taken the bodies, but by our desires, by our activities and decisions that we've made, Krishna has given us lives. Krishna has given us bodies with which we can act in this world. And these bodies come in a package. You know, already, like when we are born, we have certain karma that's going to happen. So by first of all understanding whatever suffering that I'm experiencing, it is by my own decision. This coming to this point, coming to this realization is actually very empowering. But if one really understands, if one doesn't feel like, oh, you know, I've been victimized, I'm just experiencing something and I don't deserve it, why is God doing this to me, or something like this. And, you know, we all have gone through this in some, you know, some extreme moments. We feel like, why did I deserve this? What did I do to God to deserve this? Yes. Exactly. Yes. Yes. So it is difficult. It is a very advanced consciousness when one comes, but that does not mean that it is not this. It is not the case. It just means that, you know, we need to make more advancement. And this actually, when we come to this consciousness, this will alleviate our suffering. And this is the way to actually alleviate the suffering, to accept this. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that one who continues to worship the Lord at the same time suffering the activities, reactions of his past, the liberation becomes his rightful claim. So, and also in, I don't know now which canto is this, but Dhruva Maharaj, when his mother tells him that all actually sufferings come only from our mind, and that no one else is creating suffering for us. It's somehow by making decisions in the past and by our mind, we are experiencing this suffering. But the soul actually is transcendental. The soul can never be affected by this. Okay, so I understand this is all philosophy. This is all, you know, if you tell to somebody who is in a suffering condition, it's very difficult. We don't actually tell people this. You know, it's important to, like you say, we don't tell people when they're in this kind of conditions. It is not going to help them at that time, maybe. Maybe if we tell them, but they're going to continue suffering. But that's why it's important to always to practice Krishna consciousness at any stage of life, and understand these points, and just pray to Krishna, and Krishna will help. I mean, I've had moments like this, and what I'm telling you now is that I've been in these situations, and I remember this had helped me. So maybe it's not going to help everybody, but and I remember I just prayed to Krishna, and somehow I just got pacified in the heart, and I just came to the understanding that I've caused this suffering. I've made a decision in the past, and that really, I just like all the suffering went away. It's not physical. It was more like like kind of anxiety about things, and then you're trying to, you cannot actually just cut it off, and it's actually suffering that comes from the mind, and this is one of the sufferings of this material world. We have Adipautika, Adidaivika, and Adhyatmika. Adhyatmika, suffering is the one that comes from the mind and the body. Or the Adibautika that comes from other living entities. And then Adidaivika, which also comes from the nature. So we are subjected to these all the time. In extreme situation, it is very hard. It's very hard. But if one is actually practiced Krishna consciousness, it will be easier to just live through this experience. And of course, living, if we are able to help someone, that's, to help them relieve from the suffering. And of course, this is, we have to be first conscious and then Krishna conscious. So being fanatical and, shoving philosophy down someone's throat if they are suffering greatly like this, in that moment is not going to maybe ring the bell with them. If we are able to assist and help, that of course is there, but somehow ultimately we have to accept also Krishna's will. Sometimes we may try our best to help someone, but at one point there is nothing we can do. And we have to really accept that ultimately also Krishna is the friend of all living entities, and he always is there with the living entities. And somehow if they've suffered in this lifetime and they move on, that means that karma is over. And that they will be able to move on, and if we can give them Krishna consciousness, this is the best thing we can do for them. Give them prasadam, give them holy name, and share some insights like this as much as they are able to hear. Because also, when the living entity is ready, then, and when they really want to know, Krishna will help. Krishna will, from within the heart, shine the light of knowledge and help. But they also have to be ready. So if at one point after so much suffering, when it's not that Krishna is making us suffer, this is how the material world works. This is what the material world is. It's like fire, and that's what it is. Because if it's all beautiful and happy in the material world, we would it will be spiritual world because we are spirit. So we are in this impossible situation, that we are eternal spirit soul and we are in this dead matter. It's actually dead matter, like the bodies are alive as long as the soul is inside. So we are this eternal spiritual beings, and we are in these like dead, basically like a dead matter. Body is trying to enjoy, and we're identifying with it. We think this is me. And that is actually cause of our suffering. And then when we make actions on a basis of this identification, it's inevitable that we will be suffering. So the only way out is really to understand that we are not this, but we are eternal souls. And if we engaged in Krishna consciousness, we are engaged in our eternal spiritual activities, which are full of bliss and knowledge. And even though we have to suffer some material consequences of the bodies that we're living in, it's still, when we have this body, we still have this karma. Like right now, one of the karma is our lifespan. So when we are born, we have some lifespan to live through. And then when we come to the end, we will move on. So while we are here and we're in this human form and we are in this, in contact with this knowledge, we just take the best advantages we can. But it's hard when someone who is very close is suffering and we're trying to help them and there is nothing we can do. It's hard, but at the same time, the best we can do for them is really to engage in Krishna consciousness and pray for them and do whatever we can, whatever is in our power. But when something is outside of our power, the only thing we can do is to pray and to leave it up to Krishna. Because, and to understand that Krishna is the well-wisher. And somehow if this suffering will bring them to a better place, or it will relieve them from the karma, that's it. They are free. It's not eternal, like in some other religious concept that there is eternal hell. There is no such thing as eternal hell. If someone keeps choosing, of course that's their choice. But Krishna is always giving us opportunity to go back to Godhead. Okay, do you want to say anything else? Yes, you had a couple of questions. You said as one, or thank you for coming. Yes, exactly. Mm. It takes time. Yes, thank you for coming. Thank you for being an audience. I don't